Hey guys, it has been forever since I posted a video. I am so sorry. I'm finally getting things back on track and I'm ready to let these shenanigans begin again. I have just recently made a cake for St. Patrick's Day and I really wanted to share with you because even though I had some problems with it, which I will get into later because I don't know about you, but I'm so tired of watching YouTube videos where everything always looks perfect in the end. You know there's hiccups, you know there's dramas, but nobody wants to talk about them. So in this video, I'll show you at the end where I had my dramas and how I could fix them or do them different later. But as I show you this video, I thought instead of just walking you through the entire process that you're gonna be able to see as you watch the video, instead I thought I would talk to you about my Irish ancestry. So let's just jump right into it. This cake is a design I came up with while I was trying to come up with ideas for St. Patrick's Day cakes. During my brainstorming session, a leprechaun hat popped into my head, but I didn't want something that was over the top. I wanted a clean design, but then I played around the idea of adding a rainbow. I felt it needed a little something extra, so I considered adding a fondant rainbow. The more I played around with the idea, though, I just felt that it became too messy and too busy. In the end, I did find a way to incorporate the rainbow that wasn't too messy or too busy. I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on how I did below. For now, let's get on to my ancestors. First up is Dennis. Dennis was my grandfather's father on my mother's side. He was the first generation born in the USA, making me the fourth generation in that family line, which is kind of wild to think about. His parents, Frank and Mary, moved from Ireland just outside Galway to Boston in the early 1870s. Dennis worked as a commercial artist and was well known for his work in the Boston area. Given there are a lot of artists in my family, Dennis has been talked about a lot over the years, especially when it comes to one of the job opportunities he had. At some point, Dennis met Walt Disney, before Walt was Walt. As the family story goes, Walt was looking to hire some artists to help get his ideas off the ground. He hired two men from the Boston area, one of which was Dennis. From what my grandfather said, Dennis was given an opportunity to invest in Walt's business and he was hired to design the first Mickey Mouse watch. My grandfather used to talk about seeing the drawings and the plans for the watch and would regularly kick himself for not knowing where they ended up. So Dennis does the design for the watch, but when it comes to investing and the job offer, he decided to turn it down for two reasons. One being, when an artist works for a company like Walt Disney, the company is typically known for the artwork, not the artist. Dennis wanted to be known for his work. Being an artist myself, I respect his decision, and I probably would have felt the same. The second reason, though, always gets some laughs in our family. He felt that a talking mouse was ridiculous and would never catch on. Needless to say, Dennis lived long enough to see just how wrong he was in this case. I would have loved to have been able to sit and talk with him about this past opportunity. Was it something that he regretted, or did he still stand by his decision? My grandfather had also mentioned that Dennis was hired by the military during one of the world wars. I can't remember if it was World War I or World War II, but he was hired to help design some sort of weapon. My grandfather said that it was such a big deal, men were actually hired to stand guard at Dennis's house to make sure no one got a hold of the plans. Beyond Disney and the military project, Dennis regularly worked on airbrushing women in newspaper ads. From what I was told, his wife Alice used to joke that she wished he could make her look as good as the women in those photos. I actually have an old box of pastels that belonged to Dennis. From what I was told, it was one of his favorite mediums to work in. And from what I was told by my grandfather, Dennis loved woodworking, which is something that was passed down to my grandfather. My grandfather used to do woodworking all the time. Now for Alice. Alice was Dennis's wife, and she was the first born in the USA on her mom's side of the family, and the second generation born in the USA on her father's. Her family was originally from Cork, Ireland. I do have a photo of Alice's mother, Nora. She was a beautiful lady, and this is one of my favorite family photos. Nora was born in Cork, Ireland, and from what my grandfather said, she was a fantastic cook. He raved about her pies. Of course, knowing she could cook, I had to ask if his mother carried the same skill, and he just laughed, saying no, that his mother Alice's cooking was horrible. I remember the first time I asked my grandfather about his mother Alice, he had described her as an Irish stick of dynamite. That description has stuck with me. I also remember him laughing and half joking that you didn't want to piss off Alice. I've always found it funny because the main picture I have of her, she just seems so proper and reserved. But from what I've been told, while Dennis did his work as the artist, Alice kept his books and collected payment for Dennis's work. I remember Grandpa laughing, saying, "God helps someone if they didn't pay on time." Then there's my grandmother's mother, Katherine. Grandma's Irish family was a little different in that her family left Ireland a little earlier than my grandfather's side. Her mother, Katherine, was the third generation born in the USA on her dad's side, and the second born in the USA on her mom's side. But her mother's family made an extra hop leaving Ireland before settling in the Boston area. Originally, her great-grandparents on her mother's side moved from Ireland to New Brunswick, Canada, where her grandfather, John Connolly, was born. When John was only 16 or 17, he lied about his age to join the U.S. military to fight in the Civil War on the side of the North. If I remember correctly, his service earned him citizenship in the United States. We do have one photo of John, who is my third great-grandfather, dressed in his uniform. According to his military records, he fought in Cold Harbor, where he was shot in the leg and then dealt with a lifelong handicap due to the wound. According to Katherine's husband Joseph, Katherine, John's granddaughter and my great-grandmother, was a fantastic cook and she could play piano wonderfully. Katherine managed the bills in the house and loved mowing the lawn. Joseph described her as quick, or smart as we'd say today. And I found it funny to learn that Katherine could make beer, which Joe said was only used at mealtimes, and Joseph, who was Italian, made wine. I'm guessing the parties at their house were pretty funny. Together, Katherine and Joe had 6 kids, and I was told by my grandmother's sister that Katherine and Joe were so crazy about each other and openly affectionate towards each other all the way to the end that they'd make others around them blush. Katherine and Joe were married for 61 years. Over the years, I've been fortunate enough to visit Ireland several times. Twice with GHI, where we investigated Charleville Castle, Roe Valley Hospital, an old Irish workhouse. It was basically a hell on earth for those who lived in Ireland during the potato famine, and Spike Island. I visited again with Destination Truth for a St. Patrick's Day live show where we investigated Duckett's Grove Castle, and I returned again in late 2017, spending time in Galway and Dublin. I even got a chance to drive through one of the towns my family was from. Ireland is beautiful. It's probably one of my favorite places as far as traveling goes. And one of the things that I enjoyed most about the country are the people. There were so many people that I got to meet while I was over there, and they were just such good people. They were funny. They were ready for a laugh. They were good storytellers. And even though I may have only known these people for, a few minutes or a couple of hours while we were there, they kind of left you feeling like you'd known them for a lifetime. It was a really wild feeling. And there's one memory I will never forget that kind of sums up the people that I came in contact with while I was in Ireland. I remember Barry and I don't know what we were doing, but we're out and about and we were kind of lost. And we found this guy who was on a bike and we asked him how to get to wherever we're going. And even though he wasn't able to give us directions himself, he stopped everything that he was in the middle of doing to walk us down to, I think it was like a local pub, to talk to a man that he knew would be there who would probably be able to tell us the way. Good, solid, down-to-earth people. I cannot stress that enough, and I really, really hope to return at some point. As for the cake, this is where the trouble with the cake began. Rolling out the fondant was fine, but my problem here is draping the fondant over the top like this. This cake was too tall for this method. Because of the cake's height, the fondant had a lot of room to really hang and pull down. And the hanging and the pull down created something ugly called elephant skin. This is when your fondant stretches to the point where it starts kind of cracking, and it gives the appearance of elephant skin. It is not the most attractive thing in the world, and it wasn't until I draped the fondant over the cake that I internally started panicking because I knew I did it wrong. But I had not done a fondant cake since, October 2018. I think my Candy Critter was my last one. So there's all these little tips and tricks that I forgot. And I remember as soon as I draped it over, it was just, there was no going back. I didn't have any more green fondant. This is all I had to work with. It was already stuck to the top. And I decided I just kind of had to run with it at that point. I was originally going to have the green fondant run all the way to the bottom of the cake, but because I was having the problem with the pulling and the stretching and the elephant skin and the rippling, there was just so much green fondant, I thought it would be best to just kind of cut it off where I knew the black band around the hat would overlap. This helped solve a few problems, luckily, and I was able to finally get the green fondant to lie flat. Then I flattened out the frosting, trying to make it level with the green fondant so that when I added the black band to the hat, it would sit level from the frosting up over the fondant. The other problem that was created with the elephant skin, you guys might notice this, there were some dark patches on the fondant. And that was because where the fondant was cracking and stretching, the moisture started seeping through from the frosting, and it was leaving kind of dark or wet patches on the surface of the fondant. It was driving me absolutely freaking bonkers. Oh my god, I was so irritated. As far as what could have been done to avoid the elephant skin, what I should have done was put the fondant on in two panels. One vertical panel that would have wrapped around the sides of the hat with one seam going down the back, and a second circular panel should have been put on the top, and then I would have just had to have blended out the back seam and the top seam. That would have avoided all the pulling, that would have avoided all the stretching, that would have avoided all the cracking. So if you decide to try to attempt this cake, I highly suggest going with panels. Do not drape the fondant over the top like I did. Once the green fondant was in place, everything else was kind of smooth sailing, with the exception of trying to hide that back seam. Seams are always a pain in the ass to cover. I've always struggled with them. Definitely take some practice. Basically, all you're doing is taking some green fondant, adding some water. Then you want to just get it to a point where it's kind of like a loose paste, and then you can work it into the seam and try to blend it in with the rest of the fondant. It definitely takes practice though, so don't get too frustrated if the first time you try it, it looks like crap. I've been there. By now you guys have seen where I snuck that rainbow in. The added little surprise that I snuck into the frosting was the flavor. I added some salted caramel Baileys to kind of just add to the whole St. Patrick's Day theme. I will add links below to the cake recipe that I used and the frosting recipe that I used. Just keep in mind for the frosting, I pulled out the vanilla and I added in the Baileys, so that's really the only difference. The one thing I did miss while I was filming this whole thing was actually sticking the gold shamrock and the buckle onto the hat. I don't know how I missed this, but I did, and I'm actually kind of surprised this is the only thing I missed, because it's a lot juggling between, making or working on something and trying to get all the film angles. But all you need to stick fondant to fondant is water. Finally, I finished the cake off by adding a gold shamrock ribbon to the base. So what do you guys think? What do you think of the design? What do you think about where the rainbow was thrown in? I would love to hear what you think below in the comments. If you have any tips or tricks with fondant that you might want to throw in there for others who are still learning, please do add them below as well. I'd also like to hear your stories. Do you have any stories about your Irish ancestors? Oh, look at that rainbow. It is so simple to do, but the effect is so cool. This is the first time I had ever attempted doing this, so I was so happy with how it came out. And it was cool too because my boyfriend's daughter was instantly like, oh my god, look at, there's a rainbow inside. She got so excited, which was kind of fun to see. I don't think anybody was expecting that extra little hidden surprise. Overall, problems and all, I really love this little cake. And that is all the shenanigans we have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you liked the cake and the design. And if you decide to tackle it, let me know below. I would love to hear how it turned out for you, and hopefully you will avoid the one draped over piece of fondant. Let me know how it goes with the panels, because I think that will fix the problems that I had. Until next time, guys, stay safe and healthy out there, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.